We continue with page 43, and we are in Act 1, Scene 2 of the play. So let us see what we have in the conversation that is going on between Caliban and Prospero. So Prospero is very annoyed with Caliban, and he has just said, "Thou liest," because Caliban was trying to accuse Prospero for having taken away from him what officially belonged to him by virtue of the fact that he, or rather his mother, Sycorax, had come to the island, the uninhabited island where Prospero lives now, and by virtue of the fact that she was the first one to arrive there, the island and all its resources belong to him and not to Prospero, and that Prospero, like a tyrant or a torturer, has come afterwards and has snatched everything from the hands of Caliban. So this is what Caliban was trying to say, but Prospero has now his version of the past happenings for which he blames Caliban, and we are going to see now what exactly Prospero says. So I am scrolling to page 43, and here on your screen you can see, "Thou liest," and then he says, "Whom stripes may move, not kindness. I have used thee, filth as thou art, with human care, abhorred slave. You are capable of making movement only by means of whipping. In other words, you don't do any work unless you are whipped, unless you are punished, because kindness is not suitable for a creature like you. If I showed kindness to you, you proved yourself unworthy of that kindness, and that is why you are moved only by strokes of a whip or lashes of a whip. Filth as thou art, you are nothing better than a filth. Filth is dirt or something which is nasty, which lies under our feet. So you are a filth. With human care." So there is no point that human care and kindness can possibly be applied upon you, because you are not going to respond properly to human kindness, and you are not going to respond properly to human care. Abhorred slave. Abhorred meaning is given alongside. You can see disgusting. You are a disgusting slave. So you are an abhorred slave, which any print of goodness wilt not take, being capable of all ill. So you are not capable of learning anything good. You are only capable of doing nasty things, bad things. You are not capable of learning anything that is good. So you will not take any print of goodness. You are only capable of doing nasty things, wrong things, harmful things. I pitied thee, took pains to make thee speak, taught thee each hour. I felt sorry for you when I came to this island and saw you, found you. I felt sorry for you, and I decided to teach you how to speak like a human being. I taught you every hour possible. That means I took a lot of trouble to teach you, and I was your teacher continuously. Each and every moment that I could possibly find to utilize in order to teach you, I tried to do that. One thing or the other, I was teaching you one thing or the other. I was trying my level best to impart knowledge and to teach you good things, so that you could become something good or proper. When thou didst not, savage, know thine own meaning, because that was a time when you, as a savage creature, savage means one who is untrained, one who is uncivilized, one who has no manners, no civil mannerism. So you were a savage, and you did not even know your own meaning. That means you did not even know what you were saying. Sounds would come out of your mouth, and those were meaningless sounds. I taught you the human language, but wouldst gabble like a thing most brutish. So that is what it means here, that you would utter sounds, but those sounds would not really have any meaning whatsoever. So you did not know the meaning of what you were saying, and you behaved like an animal. Just as an animal can only make sounds, cannot talk like a human being, I found you also doing that when I found you after coming to this island. So I endowed thy purposes with words that made them known. So I took effort, or rather made effort, to teach you to express your requirements or your wants, whatever you wanted. Suppose you wanted a glass of water, how to ask for it, I taught you. Suppose you were feeling hungry, how to ask for food, I taught you. Suppose you were feeling upset, to tell me that you were not feeling happy, I taught you how to. So this is what I tried to do. I tried to teach you the human language and the human expressions. So, but thy vile race, though thou didst learn, had that in it which good natures could not abide to be with. But then the problem with you was that you belonged to a wicked background. Your race, because you are the son of a witch. So you belong to the wicked background, and so you did learn whatever I was teaching you, but you could not maintain those good things. Even if I taught you and you learned those things, you could not implement those as a proper and good human being does. So I taught you, you learned also, but you could not utilize those good qualities, those good learnings to do something good. Therefore, wast thou deservedly confined into this rock, who hadst deserved more than a prison. And so I had no choice but to imprison you inside this rocky enclosure, because you as a creature deserved, I think, more than this. You deserved a prison. You deserved a prison cell. So here in this island it was not possible to find a prison. So this is the confinement, or the place of confinement I decided to utilize, and therefore I imprisoned you in this rocky enclosure. So now Caliban says, you taught me language, and my profit on it is I know how to curse. See the nature of Caliban. He is saying to Prospero that you have taught me how to speak in the human language. And what is the benefit of learning the human language? The benefit is that I have learned how to curse. Using the human language, I have learned how to curse. So now I can curse you to my heart's content, because you have taught me the human language and I know how to curse. That is the benefit, that is my profit. And then he really starts cursing Prospero, and he says, the red plague rid you for learning me your language. Let the red plague, it's a dreaded disease which turns the skin red. He says, let the red plague kill you, affect you so badly that you die, as a reward for teaching me the language that you speak. So what a reward. So I recently got such a reward from a couple of students of class 12 section A, for teaching them, for finishing their syllabus. So anyway, so he says that I wish that the red plague gets rid of you or kills you for teaching me. Learning me means teaching me your language. Prospero is furious, and when he hears, that is when he hears these words, the curses of Caliban, he says, hag seed, hence, hag seed, go away from here, you son of the witch. Hag seed. Hag refers to the witch, seed refers to offspring or the child. So you are the son of a witch, get lost from here. Go and fetch us in fuel, go and bring firewood for us. Go to the wilderness, go to the forest and collect wood and bring it here. And be quick, thou art best to answer other business. You are best advised to do other things instead of talking with me, because I don't feel like talking to you. You are good for doing service, so go and bring wood. I order you to go and bring firewood. So when Prospero is ordering, Caliban shrugs his shoulders. He is not interested. He shrugs his shoulders to show that he is unhappy about it. So Prospero observes it and says, "Shruggest thou malice? Are you shrugging your shoulders at my orders, you wicked creature?" The meaning is explained alongside. You can see, "If thou neglectest or dost unwillingly what I command, I'll rack thee with old cramps." If you neglect or try to do things unwillingly when I give orders, then I will punish you, torment you with old cramps, with muscular pain which generally old people suffer from. I will inflict such muscular pain all over your body, fill all thy bones with aches. I will fill all your bones with pain. Aches is pain. Make thee roar, and you will cry out in pain so loudly when I do that, that even beasts shall tremble at thy din, that even wild animals will start shivering in fear to hear you cry in pain. To hear you cry in pain, the wild animals will also start shivering in fear. Caliban now is alarmed, because he knows that when Prospero is angry and when he says that he'll do something like punishing him, then Prospero is really going to do that. So Caliban says, "No, pray thee, no, I pray to you, I request you." And then he speaks aside. As I told you, asides are meant for the audience so that Prospero cannot hear. So this is actually Caliban speaking out his thoughts to the audience. I must obey. His art is of such power, it would control my dam's god Setebos and make a vassal of him. I must carry out his orders, because if I don't, I know that Prospero is so powerful. His magical art is so strong that he can even control my mother's god. My dam's god refers to my mother's god, Setebos. Who was Setebos? Setebos was the other name for Satan, or the god of hell. So Sycorax worshipped Setebos, and this Caliban was actually the son of Sycorax and Setebos. So his powerful art is so strong that it can even control my mother's god Setebos and make a slave of him, and can easily convert Setebos into his slave. So he is a very powerful man, and his magical skills are really, really too good, and he can even control Setebos or Satan. So he says, "No, I pray thee." Now Prospero says, "So slave, hence. So slave, get going." Caliban leaves the scene. Exit Caliban. And as Caliban goes, Ariel re-enters, invisible, playing and singing, Ferdinand following. What actually has happened is that Ariel had in the meantime, like a nymph, gone to lure or attract and draw Ferdinand, the Prince of Naples, towards Prospero's cell. Now, Ariel is invisible, but he was playing music in the air, and that music had some kind of magical effect on the mind of Ferdinand, and Ferdinand followed the music, and so that is how he arrives at this particular place where Prospero and Miranda are present right at this moment. So Ariel's song is now given here. Let's try to see what Ariel was singing. "Come unto these yellow sands and then take hands, curtsied when you have and kissed the wild waves whist, Footed featly here and there, and sweet sprites the burden bear, hark, hark. So come upon these sands on the sea beach of this island, which are yellow in color, and then hold hands together. And then when you have bowed at each other, so for any kind of traditional dance, group dance, the starting of the dance was always with a bowing to each other first, and then beginning the dance. So when you have held hands with each other, and when you have bowed, and when you have kissed the wild waves whist, and when you have kissed the wild waves silent, meaning to say that these dancers are all supposed to be spirits. Anyway, here there are no spirits except Ariel right now. So Ariel is just singing a song, so let's not be bothered too much about the meaning of the song, but that it is a song, and it's a beautiful song, it's a mystical song, which draws or drags Ferdinand all the way to this place where Prospero and Miranda happen to be. So, foot it featly here and there, that means dance away, foot it featly. That means gracefully start doing the steps of the dance here and there, and sweet sprites the burden bear. And while you dance, the sweet spirits, they will bear the burden. Burden means the chorus of the song. Listen, listen. Hark, hark means listen, listen. And as soon as he says hark, hark, the burden or the chorus can be heard dispersedly within. Bow, wow. So that is the chorus. So it's a funny song. The spirits are saying bow, wow. The watchdogs bark. And Ariel clarifies that they are barking like watchdogs. Burden dispersedly within bow, wow. Once again, the same sound. Hark, hark, I hear the strain of strutting Chanticleer. Listen, listen, I can hear the crowing. Strain refers to crowing of strutting, that is showing off Chanticleer, rooster, from Chaucer's The Nun's Priest's Tale. So Geoffrey Chaucer is a very famous Old English poet from England who wrote the famous Canterbury Tales. And this Canterbury Tales has several parts. It's a long poem, epical in nature, and it is all about some pilgrims who are traveling, and they stop at an inn, and this inn is situated, inn means a roadside hotel in the olden times, and here they spend the night, and in the process of spending the night together, these pilgrims, they are from different walks of life. Of them, there is one who is a nun's priest. So he's a religious person, and he tells the story of his experiences of life, and in that there is the mention of this rooster, a rooster called Chanticleer. So, hark, hark, I hear the strain of strutting Chanticleer. So that reference here has been used by Shakespeare. So Geoffrey Chaucer wrote the Canterbury Tales long before William Shakespeare, at least 600 years before William Shakespeare. So that's the reason why it could be more. I could be wrong. It could be even older than that. So anyway, Shakespeare makes use of that reference here in his writing. So Ferdinand says, where should this music be? Now Ferdinand, who is following the music, he has heard this music and he was trying to follow it. He wonders where this music is coming from. Where should this music be? In the air or the earth? Is the music coming from the air above, or is it coming from the earth below? Earth below my feet, under my feet? Is it coming from deep inside the earth, or is it coming from the air around me? So he's wondering. It sounds no more. And the moment he says this, the music stops. Actually, Ariel stops the music and stops singing. And sure it waits upon some god of the island. So Ferdinand thinks that this music, which he was hearing for so long, which has stopped now, was being played in honor of some kind of god who lives in this island. So he says it must be the music which is being played for some god of the island. And then he describes, sitting on a bank weeping again the king my father's wreck. This music crept by me upon the waters, allaying both their fury and my passion. While I was sitting on the bank or the beach, sea beach, and I was weeping, I was crying to think about my father's death in that shipwreck, because Ferdinand is separated from the rest of the royal passengers on board that ship, which was tormented by the tempest, which Miranda had seen and was complaining to her father. So Ferdinand is under the impression that he is the sole survivor, he is the only survivor of the shipwreck, and so he was sitting on the seashore and he was crying, weeping for his father, when suddenly he heard this music, and this music seemed to soothe not only the waves of the sea, that means the strong waves which were flowing, these big huge waves of the sea crashing upon the seashore, suddenly reduced or subsided, and his pain, his sorrow also subsided. So that means it was magical music. As soon as he heard the music, he was not feeling so sad as he was feeling before. That's what he says. With this sweet air. Sweet air means music. Thence I have followed it. And then I have followed. From there I have been following this music. From the seashore all the way here into the island, I have been following this music. So with that we come to the end of page 44. We go on to page 45. Or it hath drawn me rather, but 'tis gone. Or I could rather say that this music actually drew me to this place. I was forced to follow this music. I simply could not avoid it. But then this music is now gone. And the moment he says the music is gone, the music begins, because Ariel starts singing. And so Ferdinand remarks, no, it begins again. And Ariel starts singing. Full fathom 5 thy father lies, of his bones are coral made. Those are pearls that wear his eyes, nothing of him that doth fade. But doth suffer a sea change into something rich and strange. Sea nymphs hourly ring his knell, burden within, ding dong, hark now I hear them, ding dong bell. So, the meaning of this song: your father lies 5 fathoms deep inside the sea water. Fathom is a measure of depth used by the sailors in the olden times to measure the depth of sea water. So, your father lies 5 fathoms deep into the sea. Your father's dead body is there now. And all his bones have turned into corals. Bones have turned into corals. And his eyes have turned into pearls. Is it really possible? Only if it is magic, only then. So his eyes have turned into pearls, his bones have turned into corals. Nothing of him that doth fade, but doth suffer a sea change. Nothing. So far there is nothing left in his body which has not undergone a complete sea change. Complete change. Sea change means 2 things. One is, it means a total change. Another, it means a change brought about by the influence of the sea. So there is nothing of him which has not undergone a sea change. So he says this, into something rich and strange. So now your dad has become something strange to look at, because eyes have turned into pearls and bones have turned into corals. So he has become something rich, richer in terms of value of the pearls and corals in that sense, and also strange because he no longer looks like a human being. His body is converted into such things. Sea nymphs hourly ring his knell, and the nymphs of the sea are the fairies or the spirits of the sea. They from time to time, every hour, they ring his knell. Knell means funeral bell. So the nymphs of the sea are from time to time ringing his knell. Listen, as soon as he says ringing his knell, there are some other spirits helping Ariel. So those spirits start making the bell-like sound, So burden within, that is a chorus is heard from somewhere inside backstage, that is. So while this is being staged on the stage of the Globe Theatres, this knell or the bell has to ring from backstage. So that is why it is mentioned within. That means inside. Anyway, in the real sense, if you try to understand, it means that they hear the sound but they don't see anyone. Or rather, he hears the sound but he cannot see anyone. So a chorus of ding dong can be heard, and Ariel says, hark now, listen now, I hear them, ding dong bell. So that is the bell. So Ferdinand feels upset when the song talks about his father's death, that his father's body is lying at the bottom of the sea. So Ferdinand feels upset, and so he says, the ditty does remember my drowned father. This song really reminds me of my father who has died by drowning in the shipwreck. This is no mortal business, nor no sound that the earth owes. I hear is now above me. So he says, it does not seem to be the work of any human being. This kind of music and this type of knowledge that my father is dead, he is lying at the bottom of the sea. No human being can possibly sing a song like this. It must be done by something supernatural, something other than human, or something non-human. So Ferdinand is in a way right. He is making a good guess that it is something supernatural. Now Prospero says, the fringed curtains of thine eye advance and say what thou seest yond. Open your eyelids. Ferdinand is standing within the close visibility of Miranda, and Prospero asks Miranda to open her eyelids. Fringed curtains refers to the eyelids. Open your eyelids wide and look at a distance. Just over there in front of you, what do you see? Do you see anything? And Miranda looks at Ferdinand. Remember, Miranda is a girl who has grown up for 12 years ever since infancy in this desolate island, and she has only seen Prospero and Caliban. Caliban does not look anywhere like a human being, and anyway she hates him. And Prospero is an old man, middle-aged or an old man, and her father. But Ferdinand is a young man, youthful, handsome, and he is a prince, dressed like a prince. So Miranda is seeing a man, a proper young man, for the first time ever in her life, and that too a very handsome, good-looking young man. So Miranda is taken aback. She is amazed, surprised, and she says, what is it? What is it? Dad, what is it? A spirit? Is it a spirit? She has all her life known that her dad can summon spirits, call the spirits, and these spirits can take any shape. So, is it a spirit? Lord, how it looks about. Ferdinand, in the meantime, has not noticed Prospero and Miranda, and is looking about here and there because he can hear the sound of the music and the song in the air, and so he is turning his head left and right. And Miranda is observing him, and Miranda says, believe me, sir, it carries a brave form. Believe me, my dad, he is very handsome. So Miranda is taken in by the handsome looks of Ferdinand. And that is precisely what Prospero wants. Prospero wants a suitable match for his daughter. And who can be a better choice than Ferdinand, because Ferdinand is also a prince and Miranda a princess after all. So a princess has to find a prince and settle down in life. So when she says, believe me, sir, it carries a brave form. I told you earlier also, brave means handsome. In this case, very beautiful or handsome. So, but it is a spirit. But then I'm sure, Dad, it is a spirit. It's not a human being. Must be a spirit, because in this island she cannot imagine any other human being. She has never seen one. So she says, but it must be a spirit. Prospero says, no, wench, no, my girl. Wench means girl. It eats and sleeps and hath such senses as we have such. It is just like us. It can eat, it can sleep, and has all those senses and sensibilities as we have. This gallant, this fine, brave young man whom you see, which thou seest, was in the wreck. He was on board that ship, the ship which you saw being wrecked. So he was on board that ship, but he is something stained with grief. But right now he is suffering from a sense of grief because he believes that he has lost his dad and lost everyone else on board that ship. So he is suffering from a grief. That's beauty's canker, and grief is the canker or the worm or the bug which actually destroys beauty. Anything which is beautiful from outside can be infested by a worm inside. Like, think about an apple, a beautiful red apple. If a worm gets inside somehow, it can rot, it can cause the interiors of the apple to rot. So the same way beauty's canker is grief. Thou mightest call him a goodly person. You may call him a good looking person. He hath lost his fellows and strays about to find him. He has lost his companions and he is searching or looking about, searching for them, trying to find them. So here we come to the end of line number 474 and pages 45. So Act 1, Scene 2, we stop here for the day, line 474, page at the end of page 45. So I hope you have understood my explanation, and I hope you have been able to follow whatever I have stated with regard to the sequence of the story. So that's it for now. Thank you very much.